students, welcome to my live teaching learning session of Principles of Macroeconomics-II BECC 134. Today is the first session of this paper. This is Principles of Macroeconomics. 2. In this, you will study about ISLM model. This is the first topic of this paper. What is the meaning of IS and LM represent what? And why we study about this IS-LM model? What this model represent? So first of all, I would like to tell you about IS model and LM model. Then we will discuss about how this model is very important for the determination of rate of interest. According to Hicks and Hansen, IS and LM is the modern model of determination of rate of interest. IS represent goods market equilibrium and LM represent money market equilibrium. I means investment and S means savings. L means liquidity preference or money demand. You know that money is very liquid asset, as very liquid form of asset. So L represent liquidity preference or money demand. And M means money supply. And who supplies money? Reserve Bank of India. RBI is the apex institution of monetary authority. So RBI has full control over supply of money and credit. RBI can increase the supply of money and decrease the money supply. If there is an inflation, then RBI control money supply, and if there is a deflation situation exists in an economy, then RBI cut the money supply or decrease the level of money supply. So this model was firstly developed by Keynes, but can be used to represent both classical and Keynesian model. The classical citation is J.R. Hicks. Mr. Keynes and the classics are suggested interpretation Econometrica in 1937. This model is generally analyze the business cycle from either a Keynesian or classical perspective, and therein hangs a tale, as you like it according to Shakespeare. So this model mainly introduced by or popularized by Hicks and Hansen. So this model is known as Hicks and Hansen model of determination of rate of interest, in which IS represent goods market equilibrium and LM represent money market equilibrium. Now next is history of this IS-LM model. British economist John Hicks first introduced the IS-LM model in 1937. Just 1 year after, fellow British economist John Maynard Keynes published the General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. This book was published by J.M. Keynes in 1936. And just after 1 year, John Hicks introduced this IS-LM model in 1937. Hicks model served as a formalized graphical presentation of Keynes' theory, though it is used mainly as a heuristic device today. So this is the main history of IS-LM model. Next is the meaning of the IS-LM model. You know that IS-LM model represent the simultaneous equilibrium of the goods and services market and the money market or asset market. I represent investment, S represent saving, L represent real money demand, and M represent money supply. During equilibrium, IS will be equals to LM. IS curve generally slopes downward, which shows inverse relationship between rate of interest and the level of national income. LM curve slopes always upward, which shows positive relationship between rate of interest and level of national income. Where both curve intersect each other, rate of interest is determined on that point. So at the point of equilibrium, IS and LM will be in equilibrium position and rate of interest will be determined at that equilibrium point. How IS curve can be derived? This is very important topic. You can explain the derivation of IS curve or how we can derive this IS curve. The derivation of the IS curve. As you know that IS curve shows goods market equilibrium. So equilibrium in the goods market implies that an increase in the interest rate leads to a decrease in output. The IS curve is always downward sloping curve. For this derivation of this IS curve, first of all, we will draw first diagram in which we will take aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Aggregate supply line is always 45-degree line, which shows positive and direct and proportionate relationship between income and output. If income is zero, output will be zero. As well as income rise, output will also rise simultaneously and by the same proportion. That's why aggregate supply line is always 45-degree line. And the component of aggregate supply is C and S. C is consumption and S is saving. Now next is aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is the total demand of goods and services which is demanded by whole community people. Aggregate demand is the summation of consumption and investment. You know that demand can never be zero. Why? Because consumption can never be zero. If our income is zero, but consumption will always exist. At zero level of income, the minimum amount of consumption is called autonomous consumption. So consumption can never be zero, and aggregate demand has two components in a two-sector economy, which is C and I. C is consumption, I is investment. So consumption can never be zero. At zero level of income, the minimum level of consumption always exists. That's why aggregate demand always start from y-axis, not from origin. Where AD curve intersect AS curve, that is called equilibrium point. At this A dash equilibrium point and A, if we assume that first equilibrium point is A and if demand falls, then this curve will shift to the downward. And if aggregate demand increases, then this curve will shift to the upward. So aggregate demand can increase or decrease. So where is equilibrium determined? Equilibrium is determined where aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve intersect each other. In this diagram, A point is first equilibrium point and after that A dash. A dash is another equilibrium point. At this A point, income level is OY, and at A dash point, income level will be determined OY dash. If we take another diagram, in this diagram, we will take on x-axis level of income or GDP or output level, and on y-axis, we will take rate of interest. And if we join these two equilibrium points from this first diagram to another diagram, then same as y dash in next diagram, equilibrium level of income will be determined y dash and y. As you know that if rate of interest increases, investment will fall, because investment and interest rate both are indirectly or negatively related. At higher rate of interest, investment will be less, and at lower rate of interest, investment will be high. Because if interest rate is higher, then loan will become more expensive. Investors will take less loans. So investment will decrease. If investment falls, then production will also fall. And due to fall in production, employment will fall and level of income will also fall. So there is an inverse relationship between rate of interest and level of income or output. So at high rate of interest, income will be lower, and at low rate of interest, income or output will be higher. So we get these 2 points, A dash and A. If we join these 2 points, then we can draw downward sloping curve. We will get this IS curve by joining these 2 points. So this is the derivation of IS curve, which slopes always downward. It shows negative or inverse relationship between rate of interest and the level of income. And IS shows always goods market equilibrium. Next is derivation of IS curve. We have therefore shown that there exists a negative relationship between the interest rate and level of income. The negative relationship is what is known as IS curve or downward sloping curve. The mathematical form of IS curve is called the IS relation, and it is simply, we can express in this form that y is equals to C plus I plus G. You know that in two-sector economy, equation will be C plus I. If there is a three-sector economy, then equation will be C plus I plus G. And if there is a four-sector economy in which rest of the world also included, then equation will extend and we will write C plus I plus G plus net export or export minus import. Net export is the difference between export and import. So this is the equation of IS, and we can derive IS equation by using this formula or this equation. Y is equals to C. C represent consumption, and consumption depends upon disposable income. And disposable income is that income which is received by consumer or any person after paying direct taxes. I represent investment, which is mainly depends upon the rate of interest. Investment is the function of rate of interest, and consumption is the function of level of income. And G is government expenditures. You know that government play very important role. Government impose taxes on consumers and producers to collect revenues, and government do so many social welfare activities. Government spend this money for the welfare of the country people. So government play very important role in all the economies. So this is three sector economy model in which C and I and G, three uh, components we include. A more specific form of this equation is the already familiar to us equation is y is equals to 1 upon 1 minus C1 in bracket and again C0. C0 is C0 minus C1 T plus I plus G. If we extend this equation, then we can get this formula. So graphically we have derived IS curve with the help of aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve, and the equation we can derive with the help of three sector model or four sector model. In four sector, first sector will be firm sector, second sector will be household sector, third sector will be government, and fourth sector will be rest of the world. So these four sectors play very important role in all the economies. Now next is the slope of the IS curve. You know that generally the slope of IS curve always or downward sloping or negatively sloped curve. When the real income is increased, the national saving curve will move to the right. In order to restore the equilibrium in the goods market, the real interest rate must fall to stimulate the investment. So IS curve is always downward sloping curve or negatively sloped curve. The slope of the IS curve slopes generally downward or negative, but it may be steeper, may be flatter. But slope may be steeper and flatter, but IS curve we will draw always downward sloping curve from left to right. The slope of the IS curve depends upon mainly two factors. One is the sensitivity of investment to the rate of interest. And second is the size of multiplier or the value of multiplier. It means the slope of IS curve depends upon mainly two things. One is the sensitivity of investment to the rate of interest and the value of multiplier. If interest investment is more sensitive to the rate of interest, and if the size of multiplier is higher, then IS curve will be more flatter. And if investment is less sensitive to the rate of interest and size of multiplier is lower, then IS curve will be steeper. In this diagram, red line downward sloping curve is showing that IS curve is more flatter, and purple line is showing that IS curve is more steeper. And why this curve is more steeper? Its reason is that investment is less sensitive to the rate of interest. And second reason is the size of multiplier and the value of multiplier. The value of multiplier depends upon marginal propensity to consume, because we can estimate the value of multiplier by using the formula like k is equals to delta y upon delta I. And the other formula for calculating multiplier is 1 upon 1 minus MPC. And the third formula is 1 upon MPS. So value of multiplier depends upon MPC or MPS. If there is a higher MPC, then value of multiplier will be higher and IS curve will be more flatter. And if MPC is lower, then multiplier size will be lower and IS curve will be more steeper. So this is the main reason behind the slope of IS curve. So IS curve may be steeper or may be flatter. Depends upon two main factors, that is investment sensitivity to the rate of interest and the value of multiplier. Multiplier, what is the meaning of multiplier? Multiplier shows multiple effect. Due to change in one variable, if there is a change in more quantity in another variable, that is called multiplier effect. An investment multiplier, which is developed by GM Keynes, it represents that due to change in investment, how much change in income will occur. If income will change multiply due to change in initial investment, that will be called multiplier or investment multiplier. Multiplier is directly related with MPC and inversely related with MPS. What is the reason behind this? If MPC increases, MPC is marginal propensity to consume, which is the ratio of change in consumption or change in income. If our consumption increases, then definitely production will rise, employment will rise, investment will rise, and income will also rise multiply. So if MPC increases, then IS curve will be more flatter and multiplier size will be higher. And if MPC is less, then production will be less, investment will be less, employment will be less, and income will be less. If income will be less, then IS curve will be more steeper. And if investment is more sensitive to the rate of interest, then IS curve will be more flatter. The balance of trade shifts IS to the rightward. If IS shifts rightward, then output will increase, income and employment will increase at each level of rate of interest. And a fall in the interest rate, holding everything else constant, increase the level of investment and output, income and employment. So IS curve can be shifted to the right hand side or left hand side. Depends upon exogenous factors or depends upon fiscal policy. If government spend more money for the welfare of the country people, then IS curve will shift to the rightward side or right hand side. And if government spend less money and impose more taxes on buyers and sellers, then IS curve will shift to the left hand side. So if IS shifts rightward, then income, employment, output all will rise at the existing rate of interest. And if IS shifts leftward, then income, employment, and output all will fall at the existing rate of interest. So this is the shift in IS curve. IS curve can be shifted to the right hand side or left hand side. Depends upon the change in real exchange rate or an exogenous increase in consumption or investment or balance of trade or increase in expenditure of the government, then IS curve will shift to the right hand side. And rightward shift increases output, income, and employment, and vice versa. Next is factors that shifts the IS curve. There are so many factors which can shift the IS curve either to the right hand side or left hand side. First factor is expected future marginal product of capital. If marginal product of capital increases, we expect that marginal productivity of capital will rise in future, then we will invest more money and production will rise, employment will rise, income will rise. In this case, IS shifts to the right hand side. Next is effective tax rate on capital. Taxation rate also affects the shift in IS curve and the main responsible factor also. If tax rate increases, IS will shift to the left hand side. If tax rate falls, then IS shifts to the right hand side. Government investment, if government investment increases, IS will shift to the right hand side. If government investment falls, IS shifts to the left hand side. Expected future output, if we expect that output will rise in future, then IS will shift to the rightward and vice versa. If there is a more wealth and if wealth of the country increases, then IS will shift to the right hand side. Government consumption expenditure, if government consumption expenditure increases, then IS will shift to the right hand side. And if consumption expenditure falls, then IS will shift to the left hand side. And taxes, you know that if government impose more taxes on buyers and sellers, then IS will shift to the left hand side. And if government impose less taxes and spend more money for the welfare of the country people, then IS will shift to the right hand side. So these are the main factors that shifts the IS curve. Now next is IS. What is the meaning of IS curve? How we can derive IS curve? What is the slope of IS curve? And what are the main factors which are responsible for the shift in IS curve? Now we will study about LM curve. How we can define this LM curve, how we can derive this LM curve, and the slope of LM curve depends upon which factors and how LM curve can shift. Then we will determine the rate of interest. Because in this IS-LM model, you must have to understand first of all the concept of IS, and in IS concept mainly three concepts are included. Number one is derivation of IS curve, slope of IS curve, and shift in IS curve. Same as you must have to study about LM curve, the derivation of LM curve, slope of LM curve, and shift in LM curve. Then both curve will determine the rate of interest according to Hicks and Hansen theory. Now, LM curve. LM in this curve, L represent liquidity preference, and money is very liquid form of asset, and money is demanded by each and every person. Why we want money? Because you know that money is a medium of exchange, and we can't buy any goods and services without the use of money, because money is very useful, money has purchasing power, and money is a standard for deferred payments, money has a store of value, money is a medium of exchange, and money can be easily transferable from one place to another place. That's why money is called very liquid form of asset. So now we have to come up with a measure of money. We call the measures of money with the interesting name real money balances or real money stock. Real money stock is presented by M divided by P or M by P. M is money supply and P is price level. If money supply is divided by price, then we can get real money balances or real money stock. To determine how much money we hold, as always in economics, we will look for an equilibrium. The equilibrium between the supply of real money balances and the demand for real money balances. So L is money demand and M means money supply. And LM curve generally slopes upward, which shows positive relationship between rate of interest and the level of income. And LM shows money market equilibrium because it is related with money demand and money supply. Money is demanded by each and everyone for, according to Keynes, money is demanded for specifically three purposes. One is transaction purpose, second is precautionary purpose, and third is speculative purpose. And money is supplied by Reserve Bank of India. And how we can derive this LM curve? For this derivation of LM curve, firstly we will draw this money demand and money supply curve. Here, money supply is vertical line, which shows that money supply is not affected by the rate of interest. If money supply is not affected by the rate of interest, then money supply curve will be vertical line or parallel to the y-axis. Money demand curve is downward sloping curve which shows inverse relationship between rate of interest and money demand. Where money demand and money supply curve intersect each other, according to classical model, rate of interest is determined on that point. For example, if we assume that here first money demand curve is this downward sloping curve and money supply, you know that it's a vertical line or parallel to the y-axis curve. First equilibrium point is E, where money demand and money supply curve intersect each other. If money demand increases, curve will shift to the right hand side. Next equilibrium point will be E dash. If money demand increases more, then curve will again shift to the right hand side and new equilibrium point will be E double dash. At these three equilibrium points, first rate of interest is R0, next is R1 and another rate of interest is R2. And if we join these three equilibrium points to another curve, then we will get this. At low rate of interest, income will be lower. At high rate of interest, income will be higher. At again high rate of interest, income will be higher. So if rate of interest and income, there is a positive relationship between both of them, then we can derive LM curve which slopes always upward or positively sloped curve. So LM curve is always upward sloping curve which we can derive with the help of money demand and money supply curve, and LM represent money market equilibrium. Now next is shifting of LM curve. LM curve can be shifted either to the right hand side or left hand side. Shift in LM mainly depends upon monetary policy. Monetary policy is that policy which is made by Reserve Bank of India to control the supply of money and to control the credit creation process. If RBI assume that there is an expansion in money supply, then LM curve will shift to the rightward. And if there is a contraction in money supply, then LM curve will be shift to the left hand side. So money supply may be increase or may be decrease. At the time of inflation, money supply will decrease by RBI, and if there is an inflation situation exists in an economy, then money supply will decrease. If money supply increases, then in first diagram, money supply, which is a vertical line or parallel to the y-axis, this curve will shift to the parallel or right hand side. At this shift in right hand side, rate of interest will fall, because if money supply increases, then money will be more available in circulation. At this situation, rate of interest will fall. And if rate of interest will fall, then investment will rise. And at this rate of interest, LM curve will shift to the right hand side. So if money supply increases, LM will shift to the right hand side. If money supply falls, then LM will shift to the left hand side. So shifting of LM curve depends upon increase or decrease in money supply. And we can say that if money supply increases, that is called expansionary monetary policy. And if money supply decreases, that will be the reason of following contractionary monetary policy by the RBI. Now, next is factors that shift the LM curve. What are the main factors which is responsible for the shift in LM curve? Number one is nominal money supply. You know that if money supply increases, then LM will shift to the right hand side. If money supply falls, then LM will shift to the left hand side. Second is price level. If price level increases, it means money supply, you know that money supply increases, then price will also increase. If price increases, then LM will shift to the right hand side, and vice versa. Next is wealth. If there is a more wealth in an economy, then production will rise, employment will rise, income will rise, and this curve will shift to the right hand side. Expected inflation. If we expect that there will be more inflation in future, then LM curve will shift to the right hand side. Next is relative risk of non-money asset to money asset and relative liquidity of non-money asset to money asset. If there is a um, more availability of money asset in an economy, then LM curve will shift to the right hand side. And if there is a more relative liquidity of non-money asset to money asset, in this case, LM curve will shift to the right hand side. So these are the main factors which is responsible for the shift in LM curve. Now, what are the main properties of LM curve? The main properties of LM curve is that LM is always upward sloping curve. If Y increases, Y means level of income. If income level increases, then money demand will also increase. L increases means liquidity preference. And if liquidity preference increases, money demand increases, the rate of interest will also rise. Because we assume that money supply is constant and it's not affected by the rate of interest. So if money demand increases, rate of interest will rise. If money demand falls, then rate of interest will fall. So, due to rise in income level, money demand will rise or liquidity preference will rise, and due to rise in money demand, rate of interest will also rise. So, increase or decrease in the real money supply shifts the LM curve rightward or leftward. If there is an increase in money supply, LM shifts to the right hand side, and if there is a decrease in money supply, then LM shifts to the left hand side. And the steepness or flatterness of the LM curve depends upon the level of income and the rate of interest. LM curve may be steeper or may be flatter. It depends upon mainly two factors. One is sensitivity of income, sensitivity of money demand to the rate of interest, and sensitivity of money demand to the level of income. If money demand is more sensitive to the rate of interest, then LM curve will be more flatter. And if money demand is less sensitive to the rate of interest, then LM curve will be more steeper. So steepness of LM curve, if it is not sensitive due to change in income or rate of interest, if money demand is not affected by the shift in the change in money rate of interest and the level of income. In this case, LM curve will be more steeper. And if money demand is more sensitive and there is a higher sensitivity in money demand and the rate of interest or money demand in the level of income, then curve will be more flatter. So sensitivity of LM curve depends upon two main factors, that is rate of interest and level of income. You know that money demand, according to Keynes, people demand for money specifically for three purposes. One is transaction purpose, which is the function of level of income. Next is precautionary purpose. People always save money for future because future is uncertain. Anything can be happen in future. So everybody wants to keep money in cash form for protecting ourselves from uncertainties. And it's also the main function of income. And third specific main purpose is speculation. And speculation mainly depends upon the rate of interest. So money demand, the total money demand is the summation of transaction demand plus precautionary demand plus speculative demand. First two purposes for demand for money is the main function of income. So money demand is depends upon the level of income. And third speculative purpose is the function of rate of interest. So money demand depends upon two main. These are the two main responsible causes for the steepness and flatterness of the LM curve. And if money demand is more sensitive to the rate of interest or level of income, curve will be more flatter. And if money demand is less sensitive to the rate of interest or level of income, then curve will be more steeper. Now next is slope of LM curve. The slope of LM curve depends upon the sensitivity of money demand to the rate of interest and the sensitivity of money demand to the change in level of income or GDP. If money demand is more sensitive to the income and less sensitive to rate of interest, then this curve LM2, if money demand is less sensitive, then curve will be more steeper, and more sensitive curve will be more flatter. Now next is, but slope will be upward sloping. Now next is simultaneous equilibrium in goods and money market. Now we have discussed about IS curve and LM curve. IS shows goods market equilibrium and LM shows money market equilibrium. Now how we can determine the equilibrium rate of interest and the equilibrium in simultaneous equilibrium in both the markets. So equilibrium of the goods market is achieved when the goods market is cleared. According to Keynes, planned saving is equal to planned investment, or S is equals to I, or Y is equals to C plus S. You know that C plus I is the component of aggregate demand and C plus S is the component of aggregate supply. If aggregate demand and aggregate supply both are equal, it means C plus I is equals to C plus S. C and C will be cancelled. Then what will be remain left? That will be S and I. So S will be equals to I at the equilibrium point. And in case of money market equilibrium, equilibrium of the money market requires equality between money demand and money supply. So the goods and the money market equilibrium we can determine with the help of this equation. Next is simultaneous equilibrium in product market and money market. IS curve, which slopes always downward, and LM slopes always upward. IS shows negative relationship between rate of interest and the level of income, and LM shows positive relationship between rate of interest and the level of income. Where both curve intersect each other, equilibrium point is determined. At this equilibrium point, rate of interest will also determine. Here R0 is the equilibrium rate of interest and Y0 is the equilibrium level of income. LM is money market equilibrium and money supply is equals to money demand at the point of equilibrium. Money supply we can present it by this formula M bar upon P bar. M bar means money supply is constant or autonomous money supply divided by P bar that we can calculate real money balances. And L is liquidity preference, which represents money demand. And money demand, you know, that depends upon two main uh, factors, that is rate of interest and level of income. That's why this equation L in bracket R and Y represent money demand and M bar divided by P bar represent money supply. At the point of equilibrium in money market, money supply will be equals to money demand. And in case of IS, which is downward sloping curve, which shows goods market equilibrium, we can use this equation C plus I plus G. Here C represent consumption, Y means income, and Y minus T means if we deduct this Y minus T, then we can get disposable income. You know that consumption is the main function of disposable income. And disposable income is that income which is received by the person after paying direct taxes. So consumption depends upon disposable income. That's why C, we can write this, and disposable income we can calculate by subtracting tax from income level. And I means investment, which is the main function of rate of interest. You know that I depends upon rate of interest, and there is an inverse relationship between investment and rate of interest. At high rate of interest, investment will be lower, and at low rate of interest, investment will be higher. And in this equation, G bar represent constant or autonomous government expenditure. If there is a autonomous government expenditure, it means there will be no change in government spending. It's already given and it remains constant. Now, the intersection of the ISLM curve represent simultaneous equilibrium in the market of goods and services and in the market for real money balances. For given values of government spending, given values of government spending means constant or autonomous. Government spending, taxes, the money supply, and the price level. You know that money supply is M bar. So, given money supply, price level is P bar, given price level. Government spending is G bar, given government spending, and P taxes means T bar, given taxes. So, all these things are we have taken G bar, T bar, M bar, and P bar, which represent autonomous spending. Now, next is ISLM model. Equilibrium in the goods market implies that an increase in the interest rate leads to a decrease in output. And equilibrium in money market or financial market implies that an increase in output leads to an increase in the interest rate. When the IS curve intersect LM curve, both goods and money market will be in equilibrium position. And IS curve is downward sloping curve, equilibrium in goods market, and LM curve is upward sloping curve, equilibrium in financial market or money market. At the equilibrium point where both curve intersect each other, equilibrium rate of interest is determined and the level of income is also determined at this point. And equation of IS is Y is equals to C plus I plus G. And LM equation is M bar upon P bar is equals to L. In bracket we can write Y and I. We can represent rate of interest by I or R. Next is how equilibrium is re-established in ISLM. When disequilibrium is in only one market at point D, you know that E point is the equilibrium point where IS and LM curve intersect each other. But if there is a disequilibrium in one market, then how we can reach again at the equilibrium point? At point D, economy is in equilibrium in money market and disequilibrium in product market. As D lies right of IS curve, you know that D point lies on right hand side of this IS curve. It means that saving is greater than investment and aggregate expenditure or aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply. So low demand in goods market reduces income level from Y0. This reduces if income level falls, then money demand will also fall. Lower demand for money reduces rate of interest. So this process will continue till equilibrium is resorted at again the equilibrium point E, where both markets are in equilibrium. So this is the situation when we can re-establish the equilibrium. E is actual equilibrium where both curve intersect each other. But if any disequilibrium exists and if we take D point on this LM curve, then money supply is higher, saving is higher than investment, aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply, and money demand, if low demand in goods market, then income will be lower. If income will be lower, then money demand will be lower, and then rate of interest will fall. In this case, we will reach again at the original equilibrium point. So, in this way, we can solve the problem of disequilibrium. If any disequilibrium exists, then we can solve this problem and again we can reach at the equilibrium point. Now, next is disequilibrium and dynamics in both market. You know that IS curve is downward sloping curve and LM is upward sloping curve. This E point is the equilibrium point. And in this diagram, we have divided here first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. This whole diagram is divided into four quadrants. In first quadrant, here ESG means aggregate supply of goods and aggregate supply of money. If there is a in first quadrant, supply of goods will be higher and supply of money will be higher. In second quadrant, demand for goods will be in excess and excess supply of money. In third quadrant, excess demand for goods and excess demand for money. And in fourth quadrant, excess supply of goods and excess demand for money. So, if any equilibrium point exists in between of these first quadrant, second quadrant, third and fourth, then disequilibrium position will always occur. But at the point of E, equilibrium will be determined, where both curve intersect each other. Now next is IS and LM. In this area, In first quadrant, in this area, y will tend to fall and rate of interest will tend to fall. It means both will fall. And in second quadrant, in this area, y will tend to rise and r will tend to fall. In third quadrant, in this area, y means income will tend to rise and the rate of interest will tend to rise. And in fourth quadrant, in this area, y will tend to fall and r will tend to rise. So disequilibrium in this case, sometimes income will be higher than rate of interest, sometimes income will be lower than rate of interest, sometimes income will rise but income and rate of interest both will rise, and in some cases income and rate of interest both will tend to fall. But in each and every situation, disequilibrium position will occur because equilibrium always exists at that point where rate of interest, IS and LM curve intersect each other, and equilibrium level of rate of interest remains R and income level remains only one, that is Y. Now we can conclude from the today's session. In today's session, you know that we have discussed about first topic ISLM model, which is presented by Hicks and Henson. According to modern theory, rate of interest can be determined with the help of IS and LM curve. And you know that IS curve represent the equilibrium of the goods market. And in this IS curve, we have studied about the slope of IS curve, which generally slopes downward or negatively sloped curve. And IS curve may be steeper, may be flatter, depends upon the two main factors, that is sensitivity of investment to the rate of interest and size of or value of multiplier. And IS curve may be shift due to change in fiscal policy. And fiscal policy is government policy, and in this policy, government can maintain their expenditures, government can increase the taxation system, government can increase the public debt or borrowings. So, if government follow expansionary fiscal policy, then IS curve will shift to the right hand side. And if government follow contractionary fiscal policy, then IS curve will shift to the left hand side at the existing rate of interest. And LM curve represent the money market equilibrium. And money market equilibrium, it shows that money demand will be equals to money supply. LM curve slopes always upward or positively related with the level of income and rate of interest. Both are positively or directly related with each other. LM curve we can derive with the help of money demand and money supply curve, and IS curve we can derive with the help of aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve. LM curve represent the money market equilibrium and shows the positive relationship between rate of interest and level of income, and it may be steeper, may be flatter, depends upon rate of interest and level of income. If money demand is more sensitive to the rate of interest and level of income, then curve will be more flatter and vice versa. LM curve can be shifted either to the right hand side or left hand side due to change in monetary policy, which is made by Reserve Bank of India. If RBI follows expansionary monetary policy, money supply increases, LM shifts to the right hand side. If RBI follows contractionary monetary policy, then LM will shift to the left hand side. And the point of intersection of the two curves always shows that both market is in equilibrium position. And by taking fiscal and monetary measures using the IS and LM model, recession can be checked out. So in today's session, we have discussed about IS and LM curve. Thank you.